guys, Ginny here for my Monday Q&A. The questions that were asked today were all revolving around comfort eating, binge eating, mindless eating, that kind of thing. I used to be a spectacular binge eater, comfort eater, and I told myself that story. So I had this huge story around my being a comfort eater, which of course kept me in that place. I've been bulimic. I have been a compulsive eater. I've had binge eating disorder, and now I'm out the other side. And being out the other side is what makes me so obsessed and passionate. Passionate isn't a strong enough word. I am obsessed with helping other people, other women especially, to control their emotions without using food, and to control their food without using emotions. You know, when you're using emotion, intelligence takes a back seat. So we know what we should eat or what we want to eat to be well and strong and healthy. But what we do can be a very different thing, because once the emotion is involved, we lose sight of those goals, of what we're trying to create, the life we're trying to create for ourselves. So one of the first things I started doing was being aware. Second thing was asking myself, is this behavior making me stronger? So an example is I was very homesick and I was using food to numb that feeling of being homesick. So the question was, is overeating making me stronger? And the answer was obviously no. You know, I was in this place where I was a victim. I'd come to the other side of the world. I was homesick and I was eating to numb my emotions. Now, when I was able to stop eating, which wasn't easy, we'll talk about that in a minute, but when I was able to stop trying to eat my emotions, you cannot eat an emotion, right? It's a bottomless hole that you're trying to fill, which I think is partly why I became a binge eater. Once you stop trying to numb the emotion, and it really doesn't matter whether it's food, alcohol, nicotine, or heroin, once you stop trying to numb and hide from that emotion, you have to face that emotion, which means you have to go through that pain. That, my friends, is what makes you stronger. So what made me stronger was stopping using food in that way and realizing that I emigrated to New Zealand. It was my choice. I came here. So why don't we stop being a victim and eating our face off, which then we're not only homesick, but we're overweight, have a terrible self-image, and I'm living away from home, you know, so we just compound the problem. So how about we stop, take a deep breath and go, it was my choice to come here. Let's make the best of it. Let's make a new life here. Let's enjoy being here and go home as often as we can. Or let's go home. But feeling sorry for myself and being a victim and trying to numb that with food made things worse, not better. So that question, is this going to make me stronger? Is this moving me towards my goals? Is this making me an emotional adult? Or is it keeping me as a victim and an emotional child? I found for me was a very, very powerful question to ask. I think with most eating, like we all eat when we're not hungry, right? There are always times that we eat where hunger has nothing to do with it. We eat because we're bored, or we're sad, or it's habit, or we're lonely, or it's a reward. So all of those emotions, which are nothing to do with hunger, we connect up with food. And the first thing is being aware of it. So if you're aware that you're doing it, and just go, aha, I'm doing that again. So what is the thought that makes me do that? Is it, I deserve it? Is it, one little piece won't hurt? Or is it, fuck it, right? What is the thought that moves you towards that emotion that gets you eating. So that's kind of number 2. Number 1 is being aware. Number 2 is, what is the thought that moves me there? And is it helpful? Is it getting me closer to my goal? I don't believe in trying to resist a craving or an urge. I believe we get curious about a craving or an urge. So, is the craving or urge there because my nutrition isn't balanced? I've eaten too little earlier in the day. My blood sugars are out of whack. Is that craving or urge there because I've been doing keto for the last 3 weeks and I need some carbs? Is that craving or urge there because I didn't eat enough protein in my lunch? It's bizarre that when we don't eat enough protein, we look for carbohydrate. Or is it that I'm not eating enough fiber, enough good quality, low glycemic carbohydrates to keep me feeling full? So is it that? Or is it nothing to do with food at all? So I think, you can create that awareness. You can go, oh, that's interesting. What was the thought that led me to the cupboard? And then you need to create a new habit, because that's the old neural pathway. The old neural pathway is, I feel like crap, I reach for food. I walk in the door, it's been a hard day, I reward myself with food. So we need to replace that. I often used to stop and have a drink of water, because I found just stopping, drinking my water, putting my hand on my heart, taking 2 or 3 deep breaths just to center me, I could then go off and do something else and not eat. And every time I did that, it was a win. And every time I did that, I got a little bit stronger. Could I do that every time? No. Did sometimes I go back to eating half the cupboard before I was able to go, what am I doing, and stop? Yes. But it got easier every time. So every time I felt the feeling and I didn't eat the food, I got a little bit stronger. Every time I felt that urge or that craving to eat, which, by the way, they only last 7 or 8 minutes and they're done. Every time I felt that, if I drank some water, took some deep breaths and walked around the house, it was gone. And that created a new habit, a new neural pathway. And I got a little bit stronger and a little bit better at it. So that over time, when I felt that feeling, I automatically reached for my drink bottle, had a little walk around the house, and got on and did something else. So I'm not saying that that's easy, but this is the work that we do in the membership. We were talking about it this morning. We had a lovely Lamington story this morning. We have all kinds of great stories. And my job is to help you take control, because there is nothing worse than that feeling of the food being in control and not you. You are a victim of the food, but then ultimately you blame yourself. You say that you're greedy, or you've got no willpower, or whatever it is. And so then what happens is you try and be perfect. So you eat your salads and your chicken and your broccoli. You try and be perfect. And then the minute something goes wrong and you have a handful of biscuits or a donut or whatever, you go, oh, well, I've ruined it now. So I might as well ... It turns into a binge. This is what used to happen to me. You eat the cupboard out. You feel bloated. You feel fat. You feel a failure. And then you go, I'll start again on Monday. I've blown it now. Instead of being able to catch yourself and go, so what? Doesn't matter. The next meal I'm back on track. And, there's nothing wrong with having treat foods either. We just want to plan them. So 20% of my life I celebrate with food and drink. But I plan it ahead of time and I thoroughly enjoy it, so there's no guilt attached to it. And that's what I want for you, so that you can feel that 80% of the time you're eating on purpose. It's not mindless eating. It's not emotional eating. It's eating on purpose, with intention. You're eating to nourish and fuel this amazing human body that we have. And you're eating for your future self. And you're eating to make your future self a stronger, healthier woman, right? Because that's what we want to use food for. And then that 20% window, if you do that right 80% of the time, you've easily got a 15 to 20% window where you enjoy and you celebrate life with food. That is my philosophy around it anyway. As usual, I have some notes here because otherwise I go off on a tangent. And let me just see if I have covered. Yeah, I think so. I think, the thing is with the whole homesick thing is food can't solve that. The only thing that food can solve is hunger, right? Physical hunger. Physical hunger is a sensation, not an emotion. Very, very different things. So food cannot solve an emotion. It can only solve a physical hunger. So it's kind of bearing that in mind and enjoying the joy eats, the comfort food that you do have, but planning it, celebrating with it. After you've had it, God, I'm so glad I had that chocolate. So glad I had that cake. It was yum. I got the explosion in my mouth of the taste sensation. I took my time. I ate it slowly. I enjoyed every bite. I can't wait until next week when I get to do it again. But in the meantime, I'm honoring my body by putting food in it that my body can do something with, right? Can't do a lot with a Lamington. A Lamington is going to give you a whole lot of inflammation. It's going to trigger a whole lot of wanting more. It's a little bit like a heroin hit. It's a dopamine hit. It gives you a feel good for a fraction of a second, but then you're back where you started and you've still got to deal with the problem. So I'm homesick. I have the Lamington. I feel a little bit better for a few seconds. Then I'm back down in the ditch again. So I'm looking for another Lamington. When I've eaten the whole packet, I feel bloated. I feel disappointed in myself and I'm still homesick, right? Whereas when I took the Lamington away, I had to face the fact that I was homesick. Interesting. What am I going to do about it? Am I going to carry on like this? Or am I going to build a new life for myself on the other side of the world and save like crazy so I can go home and immerse myself in my roots and love being there, but then come back to the new life I've created with the man that I loved or I wouldn't have come here anyway, right? So it's good to be able to separate yourself. And I could never do that because I was down in this terrible cycle, in this terrible ditch of using food in that way. I couldn't get out of it to think clearly. I was in complete and utter brain fog. But that's what I would suggest to you is the first thing is the awareness. Second thing, get curious. What is the thought? Is it true? Is it even true? Why do I believe that it's true? And work through it. Create a new neural connection, which creates a new habit when that feeling comes up. So it could be when that feeling comes up that you stop and journal, or you go and immerse yourself in nature, or you go and walk the dogs, or you go for a swim, or whatever it is. You do something else. And don't be scared of that feeling because it will pass and it will feel uncomfortable. So when you have a craving for food and you don't give in, you will feel uncomfortable. For me, I feel it in my forehead and I feel it across my throat and in my chest. It's uncomfortable, but it's not going to kill me and it will pass. And when it passes, I can go, great, another one I did. Another time that I proved to myself that I'm a grown-up now. Don't need sweeties to be okay and get through this. I hope that was helpful. Guys, if it was, please comment below and let me know if it's something that you want more of. I know a lot in my program and in my group, the stuff that I put out, a lot of it is facts, right? It's science, evidence-based nutrition. But having those facts is not helpful if you can't manage your mind around food. And that's one of the first things that we do in my 12-week program and my membership. So we take you step by step through doing that. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon. and I'll speak to you all soon.